Hi, I'm Pete, and welcome to Just a Few Acres Farm. Today I'm going to talk about how to grow your customer base if you're a direct-to-consumer farm, as a lot of small farms are. And if you remember, or if you've seen my other videos, I always talk about these three things that you need to grow together on your farm. And the first is your animal population, how many animals you're raising. And that's something you start with zero and you grow. The same with your infrastructure, fences and barns and pens and things like that. They grow equal to the animals. And the third one is markets, which is what I'm focusing on in this video. You need to grow your customer base in line with the other two things so that all three of them stay at sort of an equal level and none of them gets out of whack, because you're in trouble if any of them do. Of these three things, I think that markets are the thing that farmers have the most difficult time growing. After all, it wasn't traditionally a part of being a farmer. And if you're a big farmer, you still farm in the way where you're selling into the commodity system. You're growing your product and it's either getting sold at the auction barn directly to the company that's going to process it, or it's going to the grain elevator. And you really don't have to worry about selling your farm and yourself. You're in a different boat if you're a small farmer, because more than likely you're selling directly to the end consumer, because you need to charge a premium price and capture the profit in between you and the end consumer, because you're small and it costs you more to grow things and you're growing them in a different way. So you can't expect as a small farmer to show up at market with your stuff and just sell it, or that people will beat a path to your door. You need a plan. You need a marketing plan. You need to be aware of the market around you, and the competition's ever increasing. You've got other small farmers working to fill the same niche as you are. You're not the first to come up with what you're doing. And you've also now got the big supermarket chains that are after your market share too, by selling and marketing local and more environmentally responsibly produced foods to that niche of consumers, the same consumer you're after. So let's start at the start with basic definition of marketing, which is very different from advertising. Advertising is actually a small thing that exists within marketing. Advertising is like using a bullhorn to yell out to the world that you exist. Marketing actually says who you are in a much more nuanced fashion, and is a lot more powerful than advertising. Marketing is building a story about who you are and what you're all about, and then getting it out to the world in a targeted fashion. And that story has to be truthful and genuine, because people will just know if it's glossed over, candy coated, or made to sound like something that was made for what they want. It has to be about you, and the truthfulness will come through. It should reflect the dirt and the shine of your farm life. You have to show yourselves as honest and sincere, because that's what customers will connect with. On the other hand, it's difficult to do that because you're bringing more of yourself out to strangers than you may be comfortable with. But it's necessary to be a good marketer. Think about what makes your farm unique and a reflection of who you are. Why did you start your farm? What hurdles have you had to overcome? Why are you farming? It's obviously not for the money, but there's some greater good that you're trying to accomplish, I think, or something about your lifestyle that you want to show to others. You can use those deep beliefs to start a story, and next I'll go over the components that story should contain. The first component of your story should be why you chose to farm. What are you in this for? What do you get out of it? For me, it was a connection to this place and continuing what my ancestors have done, and farming in what I think is the right way. For you, it could be lots of things. It could be making the world a better place. It could be connecting more with your community. You need to think about why you want to farm, and it should be a noble purpose, something that is beyond just yourself. In my case, it's preserving this place and making a good home for my family. There are all kinds of reasons you could do that, but that's kind of the core of your story, and it's this first component. The second component is how you started your farm and what hurdles you had to overcome. People enjoy hearing about the challenges of farming, and it says something about your character when you can tell them, this is how I figured out how to overcome all the obstacles that exist for small farmers. It also makes your customers want to help you to succeed, and they can certainly do that with their purchasing dollars. The third component is what your end goal is. What will your farm look like when you've achieved the success that you want? And these can be personal goals. They can be about keeping your family together and having a good life on the farm, or they can be more altruistic goals like making your community a better place. The fourth component is describing what your daily life on the farm is like. People identify with and romanticize smaller farms because a lot of us grew up on those farms, even though they're disappearing now. So talk in your story about how the farm changes from season to season, how you take care of the animals or whatever you're growing every day. Bring the customer in on that daily routine. The fifth component, and this should really run throughout the story, is what you're passionate about and what is unique about the way you approach farming. And for me, it's my love of antique machinery and farming the way that, say, my grandfather did. It can be all kinds of things, but this is the part of the story that is truly unique to you. It says what you are really passionate about and what unique skill you bring to the farm that you're starting. And the final component is the most technical one. It's the nuts and bolts of how you're doing what you're doing, how you're growing your animals, and especially how it's different from the way that the big giant industrial scale farms are growing food, and what differentiates the quality of your food from what they're producing. If you take all these components and put them together and build your story, which really is a story, it's like a narrative, it'll give your customers a unique identity for your farm business and differentiate you from all the other farms and supermarkets that you're competing with. And that's the key to marketing, to establish a unique image for who you are, what you do, and your products. And the best part about that is if you convey your farm as an extension of yourself with hurdles and obstacles to overcome and successes to be had, your customers will want to get in that boat with you because you can help them identify with what your business is all about. That's where you want your customers, in the same boat you are. If you take the time to just write down those topics and build your story the way that I've said, that's really all that marketing's about. You've identified why you're in this business and why customers should buy from you. And you've almost built the business plan. If you add some structure onto that, the business plan grows right out of the marketing plan. And I recommend you do this right when you're starting the farm. That marketing document is one of the first things you should do, probably before you ever get animals, so you figure out why you're in this business. Now, the next step is once you have that marketing plan, you can focus on the next component, which is advertising. Here's some advertising. Each of these signs shouts one little thing. It doesn't say anything about marketing. It doesn't say what our farm's about. It's just things and prices. Now, you could put all of your items that you have for sale and your prices on a postcard and mail them out to everybody in a 30-mile radius. I call that the shotgun approach, where you're just peppering everybody with what you've got. But you're reaching the right demographics and the wrong demographics when you do that. So you're not really targeting in any way, and you wind up spending a lot of money on advertising that's wasted. The postcards, in my example, just get thrown in the garbage from the people that aren't interested in local food. I have on a sheet here all the avenues I can think of for advertising now. There's so many different outlets, and I'll give you my thoughts on each. Social media, Facebook and Instagram, maybe even Twitter, they're pretty weak. They're pretty weak at getting the word out, even if you do a paid promotion, because they're clogged up with so many other people advertising things and so much political crap that it's really hard to stand out as a farm. They are good for keeping a connection with the customers that you do have through daily or weekly updates about the goings-on at your farm. They help the customers, again, be in the same boat with you. But for general advertising, I've never had much luck with them. There are some better online resources for advertising your farm. I call these aggregators. One we're involved with is called Local Harvest, and I think it's a mostly national aggregator. They are listings of small local farms that sell direct to consumer, all put together so that users can search what state and town and where they can get locally grown foods. I think those are a good thing. The other kind of online aggregator is cooperative extension. Cooperative extensions exist all across the country, and they're all locally focused, and a lot of them are focused on local foods, and they'll provide listings for customers to find farms like yours to buy local. Continuing with the online theme, so much of advertising is online now. Websites. Websites are a needed thing. You have to have a website. You just can't do it by setting up a Facebook page. There's just not enough there for people to learn about your whole farm and all of your approach. There's not enough. It's just presented wrong. So you need a website. Fortunately, it's really easy and cheap to set up a website these days. Most people can do it themselves. What about more traditional print media? Well, the thing with print media is it's expensive. Let's run through them. We get the Shopper here, which is a collection of classifieds, and I'm sure you have equivalents where you live. It's not a good place to advertise. People are looking for bargains in the Shopper. They're not looking for premium food most of the time. So I don't think it's a good use of your money. Traditional newspapers, wow, they're super expensive to advertise in. I'm not sure how many people read them anymore. And again, you're not really refining your target audience. It's more of a shotgun approach. Craigslist is another, what I would call quasi-traditional option now. It's been around so long, but again, Craigslist is a place where people are looking for bargains. They're not looking for premium food. There is one way that you can use traditional print media to your advantage at no cost to you, and here's how we did it. When we started our farm in the first year, I contacted, or was contacted by, fortunately, about half a dozen print media sources, mostly local newspapers, Ithaca, Cortland, actually 3 or 4 in Ithaca, and they were interested in what we were up to, the story of our farm and kind of the marketing story that I developed, and making a go of a local family farm in an era where bigger's better appealed to them. So they all wrote stories on it at no cost to me. One of them actually made the front page of a decent sized paper. So I think that helped somewhat, but I would never do that if I had to pay money for it. Having gone through all these ways of advertising, you can see I'm kind of skeptical about pretty much all forms of advertising for small farms. And the problem with advertising is there's a glossiness to it, and conveying a glossiness is kind of like having a vinyl sign at farmer's market, a little too slick. If you're going to farmer's market, a homemade sign is always the best way to go. It's hard to convey in advertising that depth of meaning that you want to use to tie yourself to your customers. So honestly, we've never really advertised very much except for this next way, which I think is the critical one. In my opinion, the holy grail of small farm advertising is your local farmers market. They're a built-in advertising mechanism. Think about it. No more shotgun approach. You're advertising what you're selling where your customer base is coming. There's no easier way to do it. And my advice is to start going to farmers market just as soon as you have product to sell, no matter how small you are, because it's going to take a long time for people to learn how to trust you. They got to walk by your booth or your stand a whole bunch of times, maybe for years, before they stop and say, I think I'll try them. And then it takes a long time to develop trust after that. So if you're going to grow your customer base on a small farm, you got to give it time. It took us 7 years to come up to a sustainable customer base for what we produce. The other great thing about farmers market is they have a mechanism to take care of customer churn or turnover. No matter how well you serve your customers, you're going to lose some once in a while. Some are going to move away, some may change their habits. So you need a mechanism to always be bringing in new customers to replace that turnover, and the farmers market provides it. You continually have new people coming into the farmers market, and if you're there, you're drawing in new customers. I can't think of any other way of selling directly to consumer that has that built-in new customer acquisition mechanism. Very important. Also, when you're at farmers market, you want to keep a clipboard at your booth with a customer list and ask people that you start to see routinely to please put their name and email at the very least down on your customer list. And in exchange for that, they get email updates about products that you're offering from your farm and any special events you're having, farm tours, whatever. And you can keep a running list of your customers that way. Now, keeping it up to date is a bit of work as customers come along and drop off, and you have to update your MailChimp or however you're sort of sending out your message to customers. It takes work, but it's worthwhile, and I have to admit it's something that we've never done well, and I've regretted it several times. When setting up your marketing approach, you need to think in real estate terms. So how you market your farm is all about location, location, location. It really depends on where you are in the country, and if you're fortunate to be near a large city, you're going to have a lot easier hoe to row than if you're out in the middle of nowhere. There's really three main types of people that will purchase from a small farm. The first are the foodies, who are looking for something that's a cut above what they can get in the supermarket. The second are people with the means to buy better than what they could get at the supermarket. So you're talking about really upper middle class usually, although it depends on each person's priorities. The third group of people that you're going to get are people that are interested in buying from small farms because it's the right thing to do. They're supporting the local economy and they're creating a positive environmental benefit through their purchase choices. So you're catering to those three groups. One thing I always have to remember, and I still feel guilty about once in a while, is you can't charge the prices that you could charge in a supermarket for what you're growing. You've got more money into it than the supermarket's charging. It's just the dynamics of the way our food system works now. Don't feel guilty about it. Remember, you're growing a premium product for a premium price. You're growing something they can't get in the supermarket. Like it or not, these three groups that I mentioned, the foodies, the upper middle class, and the environmentally conscious, tend to congregate in cities. And if you're not near a city, you're going to have a tougher time. All of our customers, almost, I would say 95% of them have good jobs, they have college educations, and they live or work in the city that's nearest to us, Ithaca. The other factor is that college towns seem to be better for local food and for farmers markets because you've got a locus of educated people, and for better or worse, those are the ones that tend to shop for local food. I'm really at a loss to provide advice for those who aren't located near a center of activity for local food. Say if you're out in the middle of the country and there's no city like Ithaca that we have near you. You know, people talk about online shipping a lot and online sales, but I'm really doubtful about that for small farms. And the problem is, number one, it's a pain. It's a giant pain in the butt to package and ship meats. You have to keep them frozen with dry ice. You've got to deal with all the interactions with customers as far as communicating exactly what they want. They're not standing there looking at what you've got to offer. You're going to get beat up by the big guys. This online sales market's already populated with a bunch of big players that got a whole lot more money in their pocket than you do to market what they're doing. You can't retain customers as easily, and you don't have a way to continually attract new customers efficiently if you're only doing online sales. All you can do is advertise, and as I've said, advertising is a pretty weak way of attracting new customers to a small farm. They need to know a lot more about you and trust you. So I'm pretty down on online sales. I think it's like a watch. You wind it and it gradually winds down. The only way you can rewind that watch and make it run further is by dumping a lot of money into advertising. Oh my gosh, it's really starting to snow. I'm glad I'm near the end of my video, or my hair may be not just gray, but white. Marketing's not that difficult once you wrap your head around making a story. I think the most difficult thing about marketing is going out on that limb and sort of sharing more of yourself than you would normally be comfortable with strangers. So I've given you some advice on marketing. I'm sure I haven't covered every case that you'll run into, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have down in the comments sections below. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.